Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
I'm grateful to be here with all of you today. Apologies for the delay. I just came around 4 o'clock today. Yesterday evening had a program in Kolkata. So I had a night flight. And Gurgaon is one of the, I would say, most promising places in all of India where we have outreach going on wonderfully. And I look forward to coming here. In general, the places where we have a good number of educated people from software and other backgrounds, whichever part of the world that is, generally our Krishna conscious outreach seems to be increasing over there. In America, Silicon Valley is the place where we have the most vibrant, one of the most vibrant devotee communities. Now California is becoming a very highly taxed state, so a lot of Californians are going to Texas now. So I was in Texas and the devotees were telling me that their outreach has increased, that their congregation increased 3 times, not so much by expansion as by immigration. So people have immigrated. So I was traveling last time to America and I met one sitting next to me was a person who was a builder, American construction. And he was telling me that now in Texas there are so many Indians that they normally if a house is there, because then if it's a sea facing house, it costs a lot. So now in Texas they are making, Western builders are making Vastu compliant architecture. And among all the houses, the east facing house is like a premium house. So the point is even Texas also, especially Austin. Now we have 3 centers in Austin. And Austin is the capital of Texas. So a lot of software people are going over there. So I think 15-20 years ago, wherever there were engineering colleges, our preaching was expanding. Now it seems wherever there are software setups, our preaching is expanding there. So I'm happy to be here, and so I'll be talking. Some of you have been given this book. This is Prayers Inspired by Bhagavad-gita. So basically I have been writing on the Bhagavad-gita for the last 11 years. Every day I'm writing one article. So I have more than 5,000 articles in Gita daily. And from the start of this year, I felt that there's a lot of analysis of the Gita, but the Gita is also the word of Krishna and there's a Bhakti essence to it. So I wanted to approach that more. So I look at how our acharyas have approached the Gita, apart from the commentaries. I also checked out how they have referred to the Gita verses. So I noticed there are many prayers which to me seem to be directly inspired by the Bhagavad Gita's verses. So if Krishna is above us and we are here, Krishna is giving us instructions. But Krishna is not just a teacher who is giving us instructions. Krishna is also our well-wisher. He is our Suhruta. He is our Lord. So Krishna can not only give us instruction, but Krishna can also give us empowerment to follow the instructions. And thus, we often pray many things to Krishna, but if those very instructions could become the inspirations for prayer. So for example, there is a prayer in Shekhar Maharaj's Kudmala Sotra. Samsara sagar nimagna mananta deenam uddhar tumarasi hare purushottamosmi. You see, this ocean of material existence is inexhaustible and insurmountable. It behooves you, O Lord, to lift me out of this ocean. Uddhar tumarasi hare purushottamosmi. It behooves you. Why it behooves you? One reason is you have promised in the Bhagavad-gita that you will lift people. Esham aham samudharta mrityu samsara sagarat. So Krishna said, I will lift you out of the ocean of material existence and I will do it soon. Bhavami nachirat partha. Quickly I do it. Mayaveshita chetasam. So normally when we offer prayers, broadly, prayers come of 2 categories. There are scriptural prayers and there are personal prayers. So scriptural prayers means the shlokas, Kunti's prayers are there are Bhishma's prayers, there are prayers in scripture which we can offer. Personal is based on our particular need we can offer prayers. Now, if our prayers are only personal, then sometimes they can become too sentimental. Because we may be carried away by our sentiments, we may approach in a somewhat surgical way or whatever. Now, if they are very scriptural, sometimes they can seem too lofty or irrelevant for us. In the sense that they may not connect with the concerns of our heart. So here, what I am trying to do in this book is that how our prayers can be both scriptural plus personal. That means we take a scriptural verse, we take a scriptural passage, and then we see how we can have prayers inspired by that. So, like this now, so in the book that I've taken the first 6 chapters of the Bhagavad-gita, and based on that we have 122 prayers. So if you can go to page 120, that is 3.26, so we discuss based on that way. If you don't have the copy of the book, we have, I also want to show it over here, so you'll be able to see. So in each book, each page what I've done, there's a picture of the beautiful deity of Krishna from various temples all over the world. And I've taken the Gita verse, I've translated into English poetry so that we can get more of a devotional feel for the Gita. And then just below the prayer, there is a one sentence, just below the picture of the deity, there is a one sentence summary of the prayer. So this is like a devotional affirmation which we can remember. So, and then there is a 1-page prayer. So this is just about 2-3 paragraphs or 200 to 250 words. And this is where the idea is from this prayer, from this verse, there's a prayer that's coming over here. So this way, there are about 122 prayers which address various different needs. So when our desires grow wild, so what can we pray? When we feel very lonely or abandoned or misunderstood, how can we pray? When we feel very emotionally dry and empty and disconnected from Krishna, what can we pray? When we feel directionless in life, how can we pray? So various life situations, there are prayers. So let us begin with, we'll discuss 3.26 today. And the topic we'll try to address is that, how to share Krishna consciousness with people who are not very committed. So one aspect is, a big challenge is when we try to share with Krishna children, as they come to a teenage and they grow up. This is the problem, especially outside India, inside India also, that they want to explore many other things. And at that time, we can't really force them too much as they are growing up. So what do we do and how can we approach them? That's what we'll try to discuss. So if you like, you can repeat after me. My dear Lord, help me to learn how to help others to learn. So this is one of my personal favorite prayers also, that especially when I'm speaking to an audience that I don't know much about. Then this is my prayer that it's not just I'm here to teach, I'm here to help them learn. And then I have to learn how to help them to learn. This is Na buddhi bhedam janaye Ajnanam karma sangina Joshayet sarva karmani Vidwan yukta samacharan. This is a poetic rendition of 326. The wise should not disturb the mind of those to worldly work inclined. Let them act while you gently show the path to truth that they may know. The path to truth that they may know. So what is Krishna essentially telling over here? Na buddhi bhedam janaye. That we could say there are 2 levels of people. Say we are at this level. So where we are spiritually, we are yuktaha. We are spiritually connected. So we are yuktaha and we are vidwan. Yukta means spiritually connected, engaged in yoga, and we are connected. And yukta is connected and the other is vidwan. We are wise. So we have knowledge. And then there is another level of person. This person is not yuktaha but saktaha. Saktaha is attached. And there is ajnana. So ajnana means, what does it mean? Not learned. So is ignorant, not very wise. So now we would naturally want person to come from here to here. This is outreach, we want to elevate people. But sometimes what happens in trying to elevate people, they try to come up, they find it too difficult and they go further away. So Krishna is saying, na buddhi bhedam janayet. Don't disturb the minds of people. Instead, what should you do? Joshayet sarva karmani. Arrange things, accommodate them in such a way that they can grow gradually. That means create a staircase for them by which they can come up. And different staircases can have different size of steps also. So we see that when Srila Prabhupada came to India, where Srila Prabhupada's full-time disciples, Srila Prabhupada's Western disciples were basically broadly in this category, where they focused primarily on, they just gave up everything and took up Krishna consciousness. They gave up their home, they gave up their family, they gave up everything to take up Krishna consciousness. And they were remarkable. But when Prabhupada came to India in the 1970s, it was a big sensation. But still, not many Indians took up Krishna consciousness. See, Indians appreciated Prabhupada more for his cultural conquests than for his spiritual teachings or his philosophical teachings. That this Swami went to America and made Americans into devotees. That's what they appreciate. This Swami is a special Swami. So what happened? They wanted to affiliate with Prabhupada, but they didn't want to commit to Prabhupada. I was giving this talk in this few months ago in UK. They gave a similar point, and then one person in the audience raised. He said that in Western dating culture, it is called "I'm interested in you, but I'm not ready to get married." It's like that. So the idea is people were interested in Prabhupada, but they're not ready to become committed disciples. So for them, Srila Prabhupada created the life membership program. That you don't have to become initiated. Now many of them were following life principle because they're born in Indian culture, they were pious. Some of them were not. But Prabhupada created a pathway for them to stay connected. Now if you see today, most ISKCON devotees, if you consider the congregation is not full-time devotees. We have full-time devotees, but we don't have full-time devotees also. Most of our congregation are full-time devotees. So they are neither in the category of full-time devotees, but they are definitely much more serious than the life members. So in one sense, the whole congregation outreach that we are doing, it is uncharted territory. There was no congregation outreach happening when Prabhupada was present on the planet. That means the idea is, in that time, becoming a devotee meant moving into the temple. And that means, of course, it's not that there is no president. Mahaprabhu himself says, you stay where you are and practice bhakti. But in the recent institutional history, what is being done is, we are creating this space. So these intermediate pathways that Krishna is saying, Joshayet sarva karmani vidwan yukta samani. Joshayet means dovetail, accommodate. Sarva karmani. They may want to do different things in their life, but accommodate them in such a way, vidwan yukta samani. And that is where our expertise will come in. So I request different participants to read one paragraph. Who would like to read the first paragraph? Yes, please. You have a mic or you read loudly?
My dear Lord, you emphasize that good intention is not a substitute for good intelligence. Even when I want to do good for others and guide them towards a higher level of consciousness, so that they ultimately connect with you, I need to carefully consider whether such instructions might be destructive for them, even to the point of being destructive.
Yes. So, one of the key things in the spiritual path is to know that good intelligence and good intentions are two separate things. See, good intentions, as you say, the road to hell is often paved with good intentions. So we may have the intention to help somebody grow in bhakti. And at the same time, what is the effect of the good intention? That we have to be careful. It's like, what happens sometimes is that everybody needs a bit of pushing. Pushing is required, but the thing is, when we push people too much, instead of pushing them towards Krishna, we end up pushing them away from Krishna. So, what is happening is that when we are trying to share, so on one side is good intention. So good intention is that we want to help them rise. We want to raise others. Our good intention is we want to help others, we want to raise others. But good intelligence is to be able to observe and assess. Observe the effect. So, Phalena Parichayate, as Prabhupada would often say that, what is the effect of what I am doing? Is my good intention leading to something good? Or is it leading to something counterproductive? So, see, in our first generation, we have had many spectacular successes. The very fact that the Krishna consciousness movement survived and flourished after the first generation is itself remarkable. There are many religious and spiritual organizations across the world, but no spiritual organization in the history of the world had as much distance between the founder and the first generation as Prabhupada and his disciples had. When Prabhupada departed from the world, the senior most devotee at that time was 37 years old. Can you imagine? That was the senior most devotee, and they became spiritual masters and sannyasis and gurus at that time. So it was in terms of age, in terms of experience, in terms of culture, in terms of education, in terms of maturity, there was a huge gap. And it was natural that there was some amount of disruption will happen because of that. But still, the fact that we have survived and flourished, Prabhupada built 100 temples, now we have almost 700 temples across the world. So it's definitely a big success. Still, there have been many growth lessons for us. And one of the things in that is our children. That almost very few children of our first generation leaders, our first generation devotees have become devotees. Now there are many reasons for that, and I'll go into that a little bit. But what happened is that parenting is a serious responsibility, and to some extent it was almost as if in the first generation, because devotees moved full time to the temple, devotees sort of assumed that the process of Krishna consciousness would make children to devotees. Their children come to the temple, children come to, go to Gurukul, children come to satsang, they'll become devotees. But it didn't work out like that. And Krishna also doesn't expect it to work out like that. Everybody has free will, and everybody is going to act accordingly. So I was just in America, I met one devotee. You can say he's a devotee, but he's not a ISKCON devotee. He's born in ISKCON family. He calls himself an ISKCON alumni. So he told me that he grew up in his parents were devotees, Prabhupada disciples. He says, my most prominent memory of my childhood is my parents' constant disappointment that I was not the reincarnation of Prahlad Maharaj. So, the thing is that we expected our children, now naturally as parents, if we have found something beneficial, we want to give it to our children. But what happened was that expectation sometimes became too much. And the children, they felt that we just did not get a life. We did not get to experience life. That's it. Now we can say that I don't want you to make the bad choices that I made. I want you to make the best choices. That is true. But still, everybody has free will. And naturally, they want to explore the free will. So, in the second generation, relatively, of course, the second generation, the verdict is still out that our second generation is growing, but we are putting a lot of effort. Not a lot, but a good amount of effort is being put. And what can we do to ensure that our children also grow up in our faith? So, across the world, in general, there's those communities that live separate from the world have the maximum chance of retaining their children. So among the Christians, there is a very conservative Christian group called the Amish. So these Amish people, they are like a cultural curiosity in America. They live in Philadelphia, in Pennsylvania, they are there, around Philadelphia. So they don't use technology, they farm, and they live a very traditional life. So among all the religious communities in the world, they have the maximum retention of their children. But they also have a system called Rumsprang. So they don't baptize the children, they call it, in their childhood. There are some Christian groups who do that. But their idea is, when they come to teenage, they call it Rumsprang, you go out and explore the world. So there they will wear traditional clothes while they are there, but you go out to the cities, you explore the world. And after they may explore for 6 months, 1 year, 2 years. Now few of them go away, but almost 90% of the children come back. And they are growing. Now the second highest rate is amongst conservative Muslims. But that they are successful in Islamic countries. Those same Muslims, they immigrate to the West. So the more isolated you live, the more likely you are to retain your children. But the point is that if people are living isolated, then they cannot really influence the world much. See, we are an outreach mission. We are a preaching mission. So the Amish would generally not vote in elections. So recently, in the recent elections, the Republicans, they pressure the Amish. So America is a little something, they are over-regulated. So they said that unless the milk is pasteurized, it won't be healthy. So now the Amish, they raise cows and they have milk. And they were told that the milk which you are only raising, unless you send it to a factory to pasteurize it, you cannot drink it. And so Trump's party, they said, these people are taking away your milk. And that's why the Amish first time voted in mass elections. So my point is that they didn't have much political influence. They did not have much social influence. So now, Srila Prabhupada did not want us to live in isolation. He did have gurukuls and he did have farm communities. Or he wanted them to happen. But his primary focus was on that he was asked, what is the best place for a temple? He said temple is like a hospital. So which is the best place for a hospital? Where there are maximum patients. So materialism is most rampant in the cities. And therefore, our temples should be in the cities. So now the question comes, how to keep our children protected without being isolated. Isolated means we have no connection with the world at all. Protected means yes, there's connection with the world, but they're not affected by the world. So what happened is, in the first generation, we also went to some extent towards being isolated. But we don't have a structure to keep people isolated forever. Like the Amish people, I'm not recommending them, but I'm just comparing over here. What I'm saying is that they have a whole, almost they live in an alternate world. And people they don't have any monks over there, they don't have nuns over there. So people can marry within their community, they can have their life, they can grow. So now for us, it's not that easy. That we don't live in an alternate world. We live in the mainstream society. Of course, we have our worldview, we have a different way of living. But we need to integrate with the rest of the world also. Or not integrate, interact with the rest of the world. So, if we try to isolate too much, and then eventually there has to be some amount of engagement in the world. That time our children start thinking, I was deprived, I don't know anything what happens in the world. I don't know about, now from their perspective, culture means what are the movies, what are the video games, what are the social media influencers, this, that. So I don't know any of these things. I feel like I'm like an illiterate person. So then people feel very left out. So how do we may have good intentions, but the good intentions are not complemented with good intelligence, then it can backfire, it can be disruptive. So let's move on to the next paragraph. Who would like to read?
I speak.
Okay.
I can. when I want to help others rise, and even when they want to rise, I may expect, demand, or insist that they progress faster than they are capable of. Consequently, they may slip and fall, falling further than where they originally were. That is, they may become alienated from spirituality, thinking it to be impractical or impossible, or alienated from spiritualists, thinking them to be too critical or pushy.
Yes. So, again, the theme is help me to learn how to help others to learn. So the idea is when we push people, that they may become alienated. They may become sometimes either apathetic or antagonistic. So in America, currently the fastest growing religious group is called nuns. Not N-U-N nuns. Nuns are also growing. In fact, in America, nuns are growing more than monks. Because what happens is many women are frustrated with relationships because of divorces and separation. So the Catholic Church accepts nuns. So generally what is happening that the number of nuns is increasing and the number of monks is not increasing. So actually in many Catholic churches in America now, they are recruiting Indian monks to go and become leaders in the American churches. Because the Catholic churches have this idea that the leaders should only be monks. So basically the nuns are increasing, but this is nuns, N-O-N-E-S, nuns. And nuns means what? If the people are asked, what religious group do you belong to? Then none. So they are also called as not atheists, but they call themselves as apatheists. You know, apathy, I don't care. So apatheists. So a lot of people say they belong to this group. So now what happens is people say that you religious people, you have your beliefs about the other world, you have your beliefs about invisible things, and because of your beliefs about the invisible things, you create visible fights in this world. Isn't it? Religious sectarianism is there, fanaticism is there, extremism is there. So people just get fed up by it. So many people become apatheists. Now some people go beyond that, they become antagonistic, they become against, they become atheists also. But it's more that there's a little bit of, I don't want to get involved in all these things. That's what comes up. So at this point, these people, they are not against God per se. They are not necessarily against religion also. What they are against is the kind of religion or the conception of God that they have experienced. And that's what they are against. So basically, Srila Prabhupada in the first canto, fourth chapter, first verse, he explains what is realization. Or rather, he says, what does it mean to preach with realization? So he says that this is the message of scripture and this is the needs of the audience. So, the needs of the audience and the message of scripture. So, he says we need to find out the intersection between the two. That where does the two intersect? That essentially is realization. Let's see if I can quickly find this verse. So, this is one of the most important aspects of would you like to read this? Personal realization.
Personal realization does not mean that one should out of vanity attempt to show one's own learning by trying to surpass the previous acharya. He must have full confidence in the previous acharya, and at the same time, he must realize the subject matter so nicely that he can present the matter for the particular circumstances in a suitable manner.
Yes. The original purpose, would I read?
The original purpose of the text must be maintained. No obscure meanings should be spewed out of it. Yet it should be presented in an interesting manner for the understanding of the audience. This is called realization.
Yes, this is called that it should be presented in a way that is interesting for the understanding of the audience. So we could say here, the audience has certain needs, the audience has certain interests. So the audience has certain concerns. The audience has certain expectations. As we use the word nice. Now, to be nice to others is to know their needs, interests, concerns, and expectations. So the idea is that what we are presenting, scripture has many teachings. And there are many teachings that are there which are important. But what is going to be of interest, what is going to address the needs of the audience? Now that is what we need to be considering. If we are not considering that, then we may speak, but it will not be relevant. People will not find it. Oh, what is the point of it? Oh, I was just in Cambridge last 15 days ago. I spoke in University of Cambridge. So there the topic was, if I go and say, okay, I'll speak about the difference between Advaita Vedanta and Achintya Vedanta. Unless it is a religious studies department over there, who are studying specifically Hindu personalist studies or something like that, this will not be going to be relevant for them. So there generally we speak about topics which are of relevant. So one of the topics which I find among youth very relevant is dealing with insecurity. Everybody, from one side, we may find that our children are being difficult. They don't listen to us, they do this thing, they do that thing, they do that thing. Yes, it is true that children are being difficult, but also bigger truth is that children are in difficulty. What is the difference? They are being difficult means that they are not listening to me. But they are in difficulty. What that means is that actually today's age, now it applies to some extent to all ages, but actually growing up in today's world is extremely difficult. Being a parent today is very difficult, but being a child today's world is much more difficult. You may say that, I lived in, maybe I was not very financially good situation, I was not comfortable. I have provided so many comforts for you. So what is the difficulty? And that's one way of looking at it. There's validity to that. But the thing is, yes, we may have provided our children more physical comforts and physical needs better than what we had. But at the level of the mind, today's culture overwhelms people with options. And one of the biggest losses that has happened with the cultural changes that have happened is that there is no agreed upon structure for life. There's no agreed upon structure for life. And how are we supposed to live? Like in now in India, we may not want our children to watch, if they're watching some entertainment or whatever. So there are some family-friendly entertainment, there is some adult entertainment. We don't want them to watch stuff like that. So in India, maybe some inappropriate entertainment would be a man and a woman kissing. In the West, inappropriate entertainment is man and man kissing, or woman and woman kissing. There are practically no movies without some LGBTQ themes over there. And the point is, cultural boundaries are different, but boundaries are there which the culture violates. And then it becomes a problem how to deal with it. So, just as the Netflix, Christians have created their own alternative they call it pure flicks, God flicks. And the movies, they are not of great quality, but they're trying to do that. Our devotees also, we had created this, we had the Narasimha movie. So, we're creating things like that. So, that's what I'll try to address now. See, my point I'm making is that today, there are so many options, and what happens, the culture that is there, the culture does not give you any understanding of what is the right option. Like say, when we grew up, the most idea was that your parents are there, and you raise a family, you're responsible, you take care of things, and there's some amount of spirituality is there. So there was a roadmap for life, at least to some extent was there. But as the culture is becoming more and more destructured, there is no roadmap for life. And we say, what I have provided you is a roadmap. Because that's what we feel for our children. And they say, no, that is your roadmap. I don't want that to be my roadmap. There are so many different ways of living. So, it's like there are so many options. And the options can be overwhelming. And that's why, although when we say they are difficult means they don't listen. But they are in difficulty means that actually they are confused. That they just don't know what is the right thing. And when we say Krishna consciousness is the right thing, we have gone through a life journey, we have got some realizations, we have got some convictions. But they are at the start of their life journey. So that's why this changing this vision, when somebody is not listening to us, why are you being so difficult? Yes, they will be difficult, but they are also in difficulty. They are in difficulty. This is a very important shift of vision that can help us a lot in moving forward. So if they are in difficulty, then how can our Krishna consciousness offer them some help, or how can we as Krishna conscious devotees offer them some help? Yeah.
Grant, my Lord, a holistic vision for giving guidance so that I seek to understand exactly where they are and how you have acted in their lives to bring them to that point. When I act with such a service attitude, I won't try to force-fit others into my plan for their growth. Rather, I will try to discern what your plan for their growth is and hold my guidance for them in a way that is doable and sustainable for them.
Yes. So the idea is that it is not just that, say, if we are trying to share Krishna Bhakti, they are our children, they are not just our children, they are Krishna's children. And it is not that we are giving Krishna to them. Krishna is already in their hearts. And Krishna has been with them for far longer than what we have been with them. And Krishna has a plan for their life. So, there are different visions of parenting. One of the common metaphors that is used for parenting is, children are like clay. Children are like clay, that's the metaphor that is often used. Now, the idea of clay is that you can shape it whichever way you want. Now, children are like clay, or this is used in one sense both by conservatives and by liberals. The conservatives use it to say that the parents or the authorities can shape others the way they want. So what happened was the Marxists, for example, they wanted to get the children. And we will make all the children into Marxist ideologues. So the idea is that they are like clay, somebody outside can shape it. So for example, in hierarchical society, parents will shape the children. And now state, the country will shape the children. Now the liberals, they say that we are like clay and we can define ourselves whoever we are, however we are. So the idea is that there is no inherent human nature. We can define ourselves as we are. I was talking to one devotee from Canada. He's planning to come back to India. So he said he had a son who was who seemed to not doing very well in school. So the school, they had a therapist, and he was taken to the therapist. And after the first 2-3 questions, the question that the therapist asked him was, "Do you think you are actually a girl? And is your depression because society is mistaking you to be a boy?" Now this gender change is a big trend in the West. And in Canada, at least in a couple of states, the kids can change their gender, means actually not just take hormones but do surgery without even informing their parents. And it's crazy. The level of, their idea is that the parents are old-fashioned, the parents are dogmatic. The children have their rights. So that was one of the reasons why Trump also won. He said they are going to steal your children. So in America, that fever has gone down substantially. But the idea is that you don't have a given nature at all. You can define who you are. So if you are a man and you want to think you are a woman, you are a woman. And the world has to accept that you are a woman. So it happened that in America, in sports, there were some men, there was one swimmer who was like a very mediocre swimmer among males. And he became a female. And started winning all the women's competitions. So, at least this was happening in swimming, it was happening in athletics, but then the problem came. So now they said, oh, we should not criticize these are their rights, LGBTQ rights, we should not criticize them. If you criticize, then you have transphobia. We are phobic towards transgenders. But then eventually it came that it started happening in contact sports. Like if there's a female boxer and there's a man who has become a woman, in contact sports, it would be disastrous. It's not just they'll be defeated, but they'll be terribly injured. So that's where the stop came, seriously. So, the world out there is quite crazy actually. So the liberals also have the idea that, actually the US Supreme Court said that it is the individual right to define what is the conception of life for you. Okay, to some extent. But it's that if you're biologically a boy, you cannot call yourself a girl. So both liberals and conservatives have the idea that we are like clay and either other society's intentions or individual intentions will completely reshape who we are. But the Bhagavad-gita's teaching is actually that children are like seeds. They're not like clay. What do I mean by seeds? That we all, based on our past karma, have a particular guna karma vibhagashaha. That guna karma may not be necessarily the varna of our parents. But each child is like a seed. So some children are like mango seeds. Some children are like apple seeds. Some children are like orange seeds. Now, no matter how much we try, an orange seed is not going to become a mango. And a mango seed is not going to become orange. So parenting, now there are some universal principles that all seeds, they need protection, they need cultivation, they need nutrition, so they will grow. So in that sense, there are some principles of parenting that are universal. Like gardening, there are universal principles. But in gardening, what is our expectation from the seed? That has to be what is our expectation of the gardening? That is based not on what we want, but on what seed is there. So that's why when we are trying to share Krishna Bhakti with others, or in general trying to help our children grow up, is that we help me to learn how to help others to learn. So, oh Krishna, what kind of seed have you given me? What kind of seed is my child? So understanding the children is also important. Rather than simply telling them, why are you not listening to me? Why are you not obeying me? We understand them. So they are like seeds, and everybody, why am I talking about the seeds right now? That if I go back to realization, this definition of realization, I said that it is to understand our interests, to understand the message of scripture, and to understand the interests of others. And then how we can address those interests. So that's the last point I mentioned, but let's quickly. So we want to help them grow in a way that is doable and sustainable for them. Would like to read the last one?
Bless me, O Lord, with this vision of giving guidance as a form of service, wherein I first learn how to help others to learn.
Yes, I first learn how to help others to learn. So now, this what I'm going to speak is itself a separate class, but I'll just introduce this concept over here. That, see, if we consider people come to Krishna, now people may come to Krishna through different pathways with different interests, different needs, different expectations. So broadly, say some people may come out of cultural needs. So especially in Indians abroad, and they come to Krishna consciousness, it is because they want to pass on their culture to their children. When they went to America, they went for financial greener lands. They wanted to earn more money, and initially want to enjoy life. But one thing about Indians is that they take parenting quite seriously. My children will say the parents take it too seriously, but they take it seriously. So then, okay, I may want to have all my fun and everything, but after I have children, I have to take care of my children. And how do I pass on our culture's values to our children? So now our culture is like our blood. We don't notice it till we start losing it. As long as it is flowing inside, we don't even notice its presence. But once you start losing it, that's when we start noticing it. So for many Indians in the West, the temple has deities, temple has traditional clothes, temple has kirtan, temple has puja. So it becomes a place where we can pass on the culture to the children. So some people come for cultural needs. Some people come for social needs. Now social means what? They want to feel at home. The world is quite a lonely place. That especially in the past, there were joint families. There were nuclear families. Now even the nucleus are split, and there are electrons and protons, orbiting about in the concrete jungles. So UK was the first country which officially appointed a ministry for loneliness, like a government ministry to deal with loneliness. It's a difficult situation. So people often come to religious and spiritual organizations because they want a sense of community. They want a sense of belonging. So now, now these two are very different set of expectations. When somebody is coming from a cultural perspective, for them, okay, what are the cultural practices going on over here? How are for example, the rituals being done? How is the deity being worshipped? But somebody is coming from a social perspective. For them, if I come to the temple, does someone talk with me? Does someone smile at me? Does somebody ask about me? Do people really care about me? If I come to the temple and the first thing somebody asks, your tilak is twisted. Can't you get tilak properly? So they have come for a sense of belonging. What they get instead is a sense of judgment. So it's an expectation mismatch. So if the person guiding them is focused on the cultural aspect, and the person coming is from a social aspect, then what happens? The things don't work. It can be the other way around also. I was at one temple and one devotee came and said, today my whole japa was spoiled. He said, what happened? He said, the temple authorities allowed that new devotee to do Tulsi Aarti. And while doing Tulsi Aarti, instead of moving the diya 7 times, he moved it 9 times. Why were you counting it? So, what happened is, from the temple point of view, we want to engage new people. You also feel that you are a part of a community, and you can also engage in the worship. So, the idea was socially you want to extend themselves, but for somebody whose culture is very important, you did this wrong. So there's social, then there's cultural. Then there is also philosophical. So when it's philosophical, people have questions and they want answers to those questions. So those who come from this philosophical perspective, for them the most important thing is the class. Like who is giving the class, how well organized is the class, and what is the substance in the class. For many people, from the cultural perspective, they may also go for katha, but for them, it is also more like a pious form of entertainment. They don't really want serious intellectual work. So they're not coming for education per se. So some people who come from a philosophical perspective, what they need is the serious content of classes. And if that is not there, they think, what is the point of coming over here? So most people who come from an Indian perspective, they come from the cultural perspective. Most people who come from the West, they come from a philosophical perspective. Because for them, the culture is actually very different, very unfamiliar. So the cultural perspective is actually a big demand for them. But they have certain questions and their own culture, their own tradition, it answers those questions. So the philosophical perspective is there. The third is quite often the psychological perspective. Now psychological and social are similar, but psychological is where people want peace of mind. I'm just agitated, I'm feeling anxious, I'm feeling irritated, I want peace. Now, when they want peace of mind, then the atmosphere has to be peaceful, has to be tranquil, has to be serene. So actually Prabhupada was the first person who introduced Kirtan to the West. Before that some people had done, but in a mass way Prabhupada introduced Kirtan. But in the mainstream Kirtan world, actually ISKCON has been left far behind. And one of the reasons, many reasons, of course many ISKCON devotees are also very influential in Kirtans, but as compared to the mainstream ISKCON, mainstream world of Kirtans, that what has happened is, for many people, Kirtan, they want to experience it as meditation. That there are Kirtan concerts, and people go for those and they pay. And in those Kirtans, people may also participate. But the idea is that the Kirtan is very, very sweet, very peaceful, very gentle music. What happens? Our Kirtans are often not peaceful, they are ecstatic. And now there's a space for that also. Because we have huge vampers. And for those who like that kind of Kirtan, that's nice. There's a spiritual energy in that. But if somebody is coming for getting peace, that will not work. So, that particular demographic is a large demographic. After this 9/11 had happened, and it was the Twin Towers were destroyed in America. So the devotees that they, in order to provide spiritual outlet, they started going out and doing kirtans in New York. And people were just frowning and glaring at them. What are you people doing? This is the biggest terrorist attack disaster. You're dancing on the streets. This terror attack happens in Delhi and then we go out to kirtans. Now maybe in India it might work. But people, so then the devotees completely shifted back. They, at the public squares, they formed meditation circles. And they had small, 27 mala beads. And they had the Hare Krishna mantra printed out. It says, this is meditation for inner peace, meditation for world peace. And sometimes our chanting that we do, it's like what is that? Gitanjali Express. It's like Krishna, this is rushing out. Now, once somebody has developed a habit for chanting, we can find some absorption in that also. But for most new people, that super fast pace of chanting, it seems more like meeting a target than actually meditating. Meeting a target of counting a particular number of rounds. So they had to explore Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram. And I just recently met one devotee, my last New York visit, who was there at that time. He said, people were in tears at that time. He said, I felt so calm, I felt so peaceful, I felt the presence of God. So the idea is that if somebody is coming from a psychological perspective, and then we give them a cultural kirtan, like loud and excited, that's not going to work. So different people have different needs. And these four are not necessarily exhaustive, they're just indicative. There can be different reasons why people come. So why am I talking about this from the perspective of parenting and children? As I said, that I started by talking about how we might expect people to take a huge leap. And they may not take the huge leap, so we need to create steps for them by which they can move forward. See, if somebody has, in one sense, come to the core of Krishna consciousness, then all four are included for them. They practice the culture, they have good relationship with devotees, they understand the philosophy, and they are also peaceful in their own behavior, they have others experience peace. So, Yasman no dvijate loko, loka no dvijate chaya. They are peaceful, they help others to be peaceful. They don't disturb others, they are not disturbed by others. So a serious devotee will able to be actually experience Krishna, by which all these needs will be addressed. But for some people, they may not be ready for all these things. So then they may take up only one aspect. And that is okay. That they may not necessarily be serious devotees in the way we would like them to be. But they can still be connected with Krishna. You know, one devotee friend of mine, he's a scholar, he is writing a book about Srila Prabhupada's Grahastha life. And of course it's very difficult to do research for that right now, because most of the people left. So he told me that you know that story of some postman told Prabhupada that, you know, why are you writing magazines? People throw magazines, write books. So he told me that 200 people came and claimed it was my grandfather who told Prabhupada that. So people want to take credit for that. But the thing is, so he was telling me that if Prabhupada had been an ISKCON devotee, he would have been criticized for not being a serious devotee. Because it's not that Prabhupada was going every day to Gaudiya Math for the morning program. Prabhupada was not necessarily, he was, in 1922 he made his spiritual master for the first time. 1937 his spiritual master departed. So in those 15 years, he met his spiritual master about a dozen times. The Prabhupada's heart was completely given to his Guru Maharaj. But still, you know, from an external perspective, he was not considered the serious devotee. But Bhakti Thakur recognized him and he said he will do everything in his own time. So the point I'm making is that sometimes people may not fit our expectation of how a devotee should be. And still they may do wonderful things for Krishna, Krishna may do wonderful things through them. We don't know that. So that's why when we are trying to share Krishna Bhakti, we can see what is their interest. Now, what is their interest, and can we provide Krishna, some aspect of Krishna consciousness that addresses their interest. So they may not want to take up the full package of Krishna consciousness, but even they can't take up the full package, they can take some parts of it and they can stay connected with Krishna. And gradually from there, they will move on. So, in general, this is in the West what I've observed, that most devotee kids don't want to chant 16 rounds. They don't want, japa is very difficult for them, but they love kirtans. Many of them are very good at music. They lead kirtans. So I was in Canada, and there's a group of devotee kids over there in Montreal. They do such nice kirtan that they are actually, they were invited. They did a kirtan that they put it on social media and other things. So they were invited by a Hindu temple in Toronto. You kids, can you come and do kirtans? And the Toronto ISKCON temple, they told later that, you know, we were trying to work with this Hindu temple, they were not giving us any permission to do programs there. So, because it's a big influential temple. So they themselves invited the devotees. The devotees actually, the devotee kids are there. So the devotee kids, they say, we want to show our children, our Hindu children, how Hindu kids are themselves practicing bhakti. Now from ISKCON's perspective, they are not practicing bhakti. But from the Hindu perspective, they are models. Oh, you learn Mridanga, you learn Kartal, you sing so nicely, you know Sanskrit shlokas. So the thing is that they may not take up the full package, but still they can do a lot. They themselves may be connected with Krishna in some way or the other, and they may also have some value that they can offer to the world. So I'll give two examples and conclude this. There's one devotee he was in India, from Pune. I was based in Pune till 2007. So then after that I've been in Mumbai and I've been traveling mostly. So this devotee kid, his parents were counselors and very serious devotees. And the daughter became quite a nice devotee, but his son was a big disappointment for them. And then he went to America, he went to a Western Outreach Center over there. And he went for college, he actually went for college studies and he went for a job over there. So, and there he just took up bhakti very nicely. So I knew him from a long time. So I asked him how was your experience different in America? So he said, when I went to this American Western Outreach Center, he says, whenever I would go to a temple in India, the first thing which people would ask me is, how many rounds have you chanted? So I went to America, nobody asked me that. He said, I just was made to feel so welcome over there. That I was just accepted, not judged. And I saw that devotees are such nice people, and here I saw people from many different backgrounds are coming, and young people from culture, not even in Indian culture, they are coming and practicing bhakti. So I felt inspired. So he said that in one sense, while he was being pushed away actually. Now devotees who asked him how many rounds you are chanting, they are obviously well intentioned. But what happened? Good intentions can sometimes have not good effects. So when there was no pushing like that, he took it up. And he took it up on his own terms. So there's another devotee, his parents, both of them are not just PhDs, both of them are double PhDs. And they are brilliant. And their son, I met him when he was around 6 or 7. Probably 8 or 9. But they said that this child, when he was small, he was like, at the age of 5 itself, he had memorized several hundred verses of the Gita. And then, the mother was telling me that when he was around 6, he discovered robots. And he forgot the Bhagavad-gita. He forgot Krishna. He said he was 9 years old and he was like in the national robotics team there's a kind of robotics competition. So it was a national level participant who was there. And when I started talking with him, I had gone to their home for prasad, I was talking with him. I asked him something about robots and it was like the Ganga flowing through his mouth. So enthusiastic he was speaking. So then I asked him, when you make these robots for competition, how do you get ideas? What kind of robots do you make? So he said that most of the times the robotic research is being funded by Amazon. Because Amazon has the warehouses and they want to replace humans with robots. So robots which can bend quickly, pick up the boxes, pack the boxes, carry the boxes. So robots with efficient body units and greater cognitive ability. That's what they're trying to figure out. So I asked him, then, do you have, if you come up with new ideas, do people like that? Innovations, do they like? Yes, of course, innovations are very much appreciated. So then, when I had come first time to the east of Kailash, I had seen the robotics, I was quite impressed. Gopal Krishna's remarkable vision. So I told him, what do you think about making a robot of Krishna speaking the Bhagavad-gita? He said, no, that's not a good idea. So he went away, and I was talking to his parents. And then after 5 minutes he came back, no, actually, it's not such a bad idea. Nobody else will think about it. And he said nowadays there is this whole culture of that multicultural inclusivity that is appreciated for other cultures. Then after a week his parents called me and they told me that now he's reading the Bhagavad-gita to find out which verses will sound cool on his robot. So the thing is that our children may not fit into our conception of how a devotee should be. But that does not mean that they can have no connection with Krishna. They may have a connection and they may develop their connection in their own way. And that's why help me to learn how to help others to learn. So that is the mood we can have. We are not just teaching our children, we are learning also from our children how to help others to learn Krishna consciousness. So I'll summarize what I spoke today. Our theme was learning how to help others learn, how to share Krishna consciousness effectively. And in that, I talked about 3 main points. The first point was about the difference between intention and intelligence. That just because our intention is good, that does not mean our intelligence is good. They're 2 different faculties. We started with the metaphor that we may want somebody to rise and we want to encourage them to rise, but they may actually go away. So what we need to do is, we need to create pathways for them, gradual steps by which they can rise. I discussed the example how Srila Prabhupada created the life mentorship program for people to come to have some connection with Krishna consciousness even if they are not able to become devotees. So then we discussed about how when we are trying to share Krishna consciousness with others, that the thing is that different people, when they are practicing, that they have, we talk about realization and understanding the needs of people. What Prabhupada's realization means? That it is message of scripture and the interests of the audience. What is interesting for the audience?
Right.
So that interests, we can expand it to needs, interests, concerns and expectations. The NICE. So different people may have different needs. And then third, I discussed many other points, but mainly what we discussed was that when people come to Krishna, there can be different pathways. There can be the cultural pathway, there can be the social pathway, there can be the philosophical pathway, there can be the psychological pathway. So now each pathway will involve some interests, some needs. So each some expectations. So even if people can't take up the full package, so I talked about our children, that rather than thinking that they are being difficult, we see that they are a difficulty. That the life is so complicated nowadays. There are so many options that there is no clear understanding of what is the standard way to do it. And we discussed how children are conceived of as clay, both by conservatives and by liberals, or by ultra-conservatives and ultra-liberals. Ultra-liberals say that you can define your own gender, you can define your own everything. Conservatives say this is how you have to do completely. But more precisely, children are like seeds. So we need to observe. We need to observe to understand. So if we have that attitude of wanting to observe and learn, then our children may not take up bhakti in the way we want them to, but they are Krishna's children before they are our children. And if we have that service attitude, Krishna will guide us how best we can actually help them open the door for them to take some steps towards Krishna in their own way. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.